from the exciting conversion rate optimization and kind of profit building side now to the a little bit scarier way to avoid losing a ton of money. We're going to bring on Maura from Rewind. Are you ready to join us? And I think you, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello there.
Ready. Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm so excited for your session. We've kicked it off in a perfect way, kind of cohesive Black Friday, now going into channel activities and ways to button down the hatches and make sure we don't explode or implode in perhaps in your case. So I'm going to add your presentation to the screen. I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be here. And at Rewind, we often have the difficult job of talking about protection and talking about risk and talking about how to avoid something going wrong, which can be a bit less exciting than having a presentation on all the upside that we can potentially capitalize on this time of year. But it's a really important discussion to have, and I'm really pleased to be here today to cover off this side of the discussion heading into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So my presentation is on how to protect your store this BFCM season. So on the agenda today, I'm going to start off by giving you an introduction to Rewind in case you're not familiar with who you are. So I want you to know who we are, where we're coming from, and who I am. Then we're going to talk about what can go wrong. There's a lot, unfortunately, that can go wrong on an e-commerce store on a good day or a bad day. It's really important to zero in on understanding what risks are out there, especially in Black Friday, Cyber Monday season. And then I'm going to provide 6 tips for how you can protect your data, your online store, and your bottom line. Okay, so kicking off with a bit about Rewind. So Rewind is a backup application. We exist to be able to automatically back up your data and allow you to restore anything from a single image to your entire store in just a few clicks. So we do backups, and we started off by offering our backup and restore service primarily to Shopify merchants via the Shopify marketplace, but then expanded what we offer to cover BigCommerce and other SaaS applications where businesses are saving critical data, GitHub, Trello, QuickBooks Online, and we have big plans to expand beyond these in the near future. We're very proud to be a well-reviewed app. We have over 1,300 5-star reviews across the platforms that we support, and we're trusted by over 80,000 businesses. We're a Shopify Plus certified app. We're one of the top reviewed apps in the BigCommerce app marketplace, and we've also won some awards for our work directly with BigCommerce. So to understand why Rewind exists, it's important to understand what can go wrong. I've been working with Rewind for the last 2.5 years. I'm a product manager. I work on the product team, and my specific focus is our backup and restore applications for BigCommerce and Shopify. And I regret to share that a lot goes wrong. So every single day, we're busy helping merchants get back on their feet after some type of mishap. And I can bucket these mishaps into 3 categories. And the first category is human error. And this is quite simply mistakes. And mistakes happen all the time. There's a huge range of people working on e-commerce sites, from beginners on the technology to agencies with a really full plate, to kind of like that mid-stage business that's looking to mature their operation and add some sophistication with some new apps and some new workflows. Unfortunately, things don't always go according to plan. It could be a CSV import that goes wrong, or something as simple as a misclick can result in a lot of pain. I'm going to give you some examples here. This is one of our customers, Whisker Seeker. They manufacture and sell catfishing tackle and gear. And the man in this picture, his name's Matthew, and he's the owner of the store. They operate on BigCommerce, actually. And I had the opportunity to interview Matt and understand how he came to be a Rewind customer. And he told me a story that really struck me. And it's actually a sad story because they suffered some pretty tremendous data loss on their store in the days leading up to Black Friday. They had so much going on at this time of year, lots of, refresh campaigns and new tactics and promotions. The whole team was really busy, but then 4 days before the event, they were doing a CSV import to adjust some prices, some sale prices, and they had an instance where the columns were misaligned, and it resulted in 300 products being totally wiped from their store, including product images. And my heart went out to Matt as he told me this story, because they had to just immediately abandon a lot of the work they had been doing to make Black Friday as optimal as possible, and just go totally in on repopulating that store with all the products and all the correct product details. And this was so dire that into the nights, they were retaking photographs of some of their products, because they didn't have it saved, and they didn't know that something like this could happen. So they were not a Rewind customer when this happened, but they are now, and they would never risk again losing data at any time of year, but much less around the sale holiday season. Another example of human error, this is our customer Crossrope. They sell weighted skipping ropes and workouts that go along with them. They were doing, this wasn't related to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but they were doing some fairly regular theme code edits, updates, trying to improve some visual aspects of their site, and a series of changes were made and pushed live, and things seemed okay until it became apparent that customers were no longer able to add their products to the cart. And it was really unclear how the theme changes or the work that had been done had resulted in this add to cart button being disabled. In this case, what they were able to do is restore to an earlier version of their theme that they had manually backed up 1 month ago. And they were able to reactivate that button and get customers moving through their site again. So this was good that they had that manual backup that they had run a month ago. It was a bit suboptimal though, because a lot of changes had happened on that site in that month timeline that they had to sacrifice in order just to be able to correct this major mishap and be able to sell again. So is just the number one reason why we are busy every single day helping people recover from mistakes on their store. Another way that things can go wrong, though, is through our integrations with third-party apps. So the app ecosystems that surround Shopify and BigCommerce are extraordinary. They give us superpowers. They close gaps. They let our stores become more like custom, more sophisticated, more powerful. And we're an app. We're working in this zone as well, and have been able to build a business for ourselves, connecting to many different Shopify stores. But it's really important to acknowledge that every time you make a connection to a third-party app, you're opening a door to your store. You're giving this software and the people behind that software the ability to access your store data and potentially update it, delete it, manipulate it. And sometimes that doesn't go totally according to plan. Sometimes there are apps that are less mature than others, that don't have really well-realized Q&A processes, and data is changed in a way that it should not have been. And sometimes there's just not a clear understanding of what the app is going to do and how it's going to manipulate your data in a way that can be really, really harmful to your business if you're not properly anticipating the changes that an app is going to make. Let me give you an example of some things going wrong with app integrations. This store is Revival Rugs. They're a company that works with us as well, a store that works with us, and they were integrating with a third-party app to kind of they were changing some processes around shipping and logistics, and integrated with an app that resulted in all of the inventory on all their products being set to 0. This was not the plan. This was not supposed to happen, and it was a huge issue because that immediately blocked them from being able to sell anything. So this we've got a quote here from Ben, the co-founder of Revival Rugs, and it's a real reflection on how much time, how much work we're investing into these stores, and how when you're opening your doors to third-party apps, a lot can change very quickly, and it's really important to be very careful when you make those integrations. This store is called It's Juliet. It's female apparel, and the co-founder of this, the founder of this business, her name is Tiffany, and I spoke with Tiffany fairly recently, and she told me about her journey to starting to back up her store, and she had a problem also with a third-party app. She was looking to improve her discoverability. She was connecting with an SEO app that was going to make a lot of improvements to her product page, her product images, specifically compressing her product images, but it wiped all her product images. So in this case, it wasn't a misunderstanding of what the app was going to do. It was a really kind of immature app, and the app behaved in a way that it was not intended to behave, and resulted in big loss for It's Juliet. Now, she was able to cover a little bit quicker than some of the others. She had her ducks in a row in terms of being able to reload in her product images, but it was horrifying. It's a really scary spot to be when you've dumped a lot of work. Shouldn't say dumped, when you've invested a lot of time, a lot of work into your Shopify store, to have it suddenly looking out of sorts. Okay, the last category of things that can go wrong is the one that we see the least, but it does happen, unfortunately, and that is when an ill-intentioned employee or ex-employee or a hacker gains access to your store and intentionally corrupts your data or deletes data with bad intent. We had a customer of ours who had an ex-employee who still had access to the store, log into the store and delete products, delete pages, delete blog posts. It was pretty vicious, but this customer that we worked with had us there on their side, and we were able to quickly put that data back because we had an up-to-date version of it and the means to quickly restore it. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what can go wrong. And in acknowledging that some stuff can go wrong, it's helpful to reflect on what is at stake. And I bet this slide is not a surprise to this audience. You know that there's a ton at stake. So if you do lose data, or your store gets kind of fussed up, there's going to be a lot of time that goes into manually recovering lost data. You may have a few different strategies in place, or a few different apps that you integrate with, or ways that you store your data that could impact how long it takes for you to do a manual recovery. But one thing is, it's just going to take a lot of time, and a lot of there's a lot of anxiety and heartache and fear that kind of plays into one of those moments. Lost revenue from downtime. So in a lot of these scenarios that I described, the ability to sell was absolutely compromised. Losing the add to cart button, not having product images, inventory being set to 0. These have bottom line implications. Totally, we should be trying to avoid this at all times of year, but especially in this Black Friday, Cyber Monday season and that event. It's just an unbearable thought that you wouldn't be able to maximize your sales at that time, especially with all the work that's going in to the event in these months. And then the third category here of what's at stake is loss of customers and credibility. So if you're losing customers, you're losing revenue. That makes a lot of sense. But I know from speaking with merchants very regularly and getting to know merchants that earning that customer trust and credibility is so important for the long-term success of your stores. You need customers to be coming back again or referring your business to their community and their network. And if you are delivering a disconnected, incomplete, confusing experience because you've suffered some data loss, it's really going to impact your ability to make that long-term relationship with the customer. So stuff can go wrong. A lot of stuff is at stake. So why on earth is there no undo button? So this was my very question when I was coming to join Rewind over 2.5 years ago. At that time, I was new to the e-commerce world altogether, and I kind of learned about this business that was doing backup and restores. And my first question was, why isn't this covered by Shopify or by BigCommerce, or for that matter, by QuickBooks Online, by GitHub, by Trello, by all these businesses that provide the software that we operate on? And I came to understand why this is through learning about the shared responsibility model. Now, the shared responsibility model is a very common, I guess, posture or best practice that the SaaS platforms that we rely on have adopted and enforce. And it essentially establishes that protecting the operations of, in this case, an e-commerce platform, of a SaaS software is both the responsibility of the provider and of the account owner. And in this case, the account owner are store owners or merchants like you. So we'll just kind of walk through this a bit more. So the e-commerce platform, let's say Shopify, is responsible for providing the platform infrastructure and security. It is Shopify's job to make sure that Shopify is always running, is always up, is always ready to support our businesses at any time of year. And they have huge teams that work on this. And they absolutely themselves have a disaster recovery and backups procedure. So if anything was to ever happen to Shopify that compromised their ability to provide Shopify to us, they have contingency plans in place to be able to offer us continuous uptime. And we absolutely benefit from uptime from these platforms. But where the line is drawn between Shopify's responsibility, wrong way, and our responsibility is the data that we actually put into our stores. So merchants in this case are responsible for store data and the security, so access to your store. Store data covers everything from orders to customers and inventory, your theme code, the assets, the product catalogs, content, blog posts, the list goes on. And we're responsible for protecting our store. So that making sure that only people who need access have access to our stores, tight management of roles and permissions, and a backup and recovery procedure of our own. So I'll get specific here, and I'm going to zoom right into Shopify's terms and conditions where this is expressed. So you, the merchant, are responsible for all activity and content such as photos, images, videos, graphics, written content, audio files, code information, or data uploaded, collected, generated, stored, displayed, distributed, transmitted, or exhibited on or in connection with your account. That's a mouthful, but it is to say that it is your job to protect all that you have created inside of your Shopify store. Shopify is going to keep your store there, but everything that you put into it, it's your job to protect that. So now just going back to that realization that data can be lost, I've fleshed it out here on a scale of likely to unlikely. So that's the center blue line on this slide. So very likely on the right there, as I mentioned, human error is the most common reason data is lost. And then there's the unlikely end of things where there's a meteorite lands on the Shopify servers, or there is a massive data breach. And then the kind of gray and orange lines here show you how the shared responsibility model comes to interact with these different types of data loss. So we have some cover from the platform backup. So from Shopify's security team is going to cover us and make sure that Shopify is always up and running, or for that matter, BigCommerce. But it is the merchant's responsibility to make sure we're giving our account, our store, that extra level of protection. Okay, so now I'm going to provide to you 6 tips these are things you can actively be doing heading into Black Friday, Cyber Monday to protect your store. Number 1 is password management. Now, I think I think we all know that we should have good passwords, strong passwords, secure passwords, random passwords of sufficient length and variety. But it is really, really hard to do that because we're not robots, we're humans. It's super difficult to have all of our passwords be as strong as they should be. So we at Rewind use a password management application, and we strongly recommend that merchants use a password manager. It's called a password manager to help generate and store secure passwords. 2 that we recommend are 1Password and LastPass. This software is actually some of my favorite software because it's very easy to use and is extremely convenient once you get up and running with it. And if you can adopt this solution, you've just leveled up your protection of every software, every application that you use, including your e-commerce store. And it's a great way if you work with a team to kind of make sure that everyone's taking those steps. If you enforce that all your collaborators have to use this password manager as well. The next step is we recommend that you embrace 2-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. So this is the next layer. This is like the next line of defense beyond the password. You can think of a password as something you know, whereas an authentication code as something that you have. Upon sign-in, you'll be prompted to go 1 level deeper and provide the code to get into your store. Now, BigCommerce has 2FA automatically enabled for all merchants, whereas in the Shopify world, we have to enable it for ourselves. And it's very easy to do. All you do is you go in, let me just think if I can think of this on the spot. It's under your account, so that when you're logged into your Shopify admin, you have your, it's in the right-hand corner, you have your account settings. It's not in the store settings, it's in your account settings, and then you navigate to security and you'll have the option of enabling 2-factor authentication. I think the way that they offer it is via SMS verification. So upon a sign into your store, you're going to use your unique password followed by filling in an authentication code that is sent to you on your mobile device. So add another line of defense. A level up from 2-factor authentication is multi-factor authentication, where rather than relying on the SMS as the channel to receive your codes, you use an authenticator app. But at the bare minimum, consider enabling 2FA on Shopify and on other applications you use. Number 3 is adopt the principle of least privilege. This is a software best practice, and it means if you don't need access to do your job, you shouldn't have access. So thinking about what you work with or who, like the applications that you and your colleagues or your teammates have access to, we want to make sure that we don't have an overextension of access. Only people who are using the application or the software or the store should have access to it. So if you've got a lot of extra collaborator accounts on your Shopify store that they don't need to be active right now, it's a really good time to examine those and pull back some permissions. Same thing with staff members. Should everybody have access to every app? We recommend that they shouldn't. So really just peeling through all the tools that you use to operate and making sure that you've managed the scope from a human perspective. We only have the people on these applications that we need. And this is so important because the most common way that data is lost is human error. So by just reducing access, you've mitigated that risk very, very significantly. Number 4 is manage app access. So the same way we want to put what people have access under the microscope, it's important to put the apps themselves under the microscope. I know that each Shopify store is bound to have a lot of app integrations. It's a really good time right now to go through, review what you have. Remember, I described integrating with an app as opening a door to your store, to the outside world. Like, how many doors do you have open right now? Are there any that you can close? Even if you're not actively using an app, if it's installed on your store, it often has permission to write data to your store or update resources or even delete resources. The hope is that would never happen without you knowing, but it's very responsible to just go through and make sure that you don't have any apps running on your store at this time of year that you don't need. Number 5 is watch out for phishing attacks. Now, this is something we've actually just recently kind of added to this. We used to have 5 tips, and now we have 6 tips. We're learning a lot about phishing attacks internally at Rewind right now. We're experiencing a lot of people trying to gain access to parts of our business, and have learned that this is becoming more common for smaller businesses, not just kind of enterprise level. So I encourage you to familiarize yourself with what a phishing attack is. It's someone trying to gain access to your business, to your applications, to your store, using false pretenses. So this often plays out in the form of an email of someone masquerading as someone you know, encouraging you to click a link. The name of the game here is to be critical and suspicious of what's coming in to you via your inbox, in terms of requests without context. Really think about, was I expecting this email? Does the sender typically reach me in this way? Can I verify with the sender in another channel that this is a safe flow to follow? Just be critical of what you're seeing and what you're clicking, especially when it comes to clicking links, clicking attachments. Okay, final one. I bet some of you might be able to guess it, and it is back up your store. So this is what we're all about. Even with all of these levels of protection kind of in play before that point, it is so valuable to have a backup and restore procedure in place or plans in place. There's a lot of different ways to do that. There's options in the App Store. What I encourage you to think about is what is complete coverage. So you want to be able to have a backup of your blogs, your collections, customers, pages, products, product images, things that aren't even on this list, product meta fields, and all your variants and your SKUs. And it's important for a backup to be the most powerful and the most comprehensive. You want a backup system that's going to run on a recurring basis. It's going to be automated. It doesn't depend on a human to go and say, okay, now's the time for the backup. And you want to have flexibility in terms of how you restore. Do you have to put back the whole store? Can you put back just a portion of the store? Can you put back just the page that you lost? That's what I encourage you to look for as you consider a backup and recovery solution. So that is it. Thank you very much for having me here today. Here's a quick little recap. So what we talked about is risks, what can go wrong, acknowledging that human error is often a way that things go wrong. Third-party apps can also cause problems, ill-intentioned employees or hackers. And then I provided our tips that I think I encourage you to take going into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Manage your passwords, embrace two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. Only people who need access to applications should have access to applications and software. Manage app access, prune back your apps, be wary of phishing attacks, and lastly, back up your store. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. And I agree completely with on the app side. I talk with a lot of merchants about this. I say, look, they'll say, oh, I'm not using that app. It's like, well, you still have it installed. So it's got access to your account,
Yeah,
which means it could accidentally like sync the store at some point. So we want to clean up the code base, get it out of there, uninstall it, and make
absolutely.
sure that they're not, whether they have a malicious attack on their end, which, doesn't happen that often, but it happens enough to warrant, doing something about. or whether it's just going to do something accidental, or it's got a JavaScript snippet that could go down, or it's just bogging down the site. If it's not in use, don't
Yeah.
keep it around. And that's just like, maybe a quarterly process of cleaning up the code base. And on two-factor authentication, it needs to be mandatory on every major channel that anybody's using: email, SMS, anytime you have customer data. So of course, platform, Slack, your project management tool. People are, like you said, fishing for this information.
Mhm.
I've gotten, spoof emails from team members saying, "Hey, Derek, I need the credit card number," and stuff like that. Like, those people are out there. They're
Yeah,
hunting.
we're getting a huge increase of that into our inboxes as well.
Yeah, and it's really scary because there is not a lot that like we can do to prevent the initial, attack. We can definitely prevent it from affecting us, but those messages are just gonna increase over time because the hackers are getting really smart. So yeah, the doom and gloom side of it, but
I
guys, if
know.
you don't have Rewind installed right now, just install it before Black Friday. Make sure that you have as much uptime as possible. You don't lose any of your content, whether by human error or malicious attack, and definitely follow the other steps here to secure your store. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Derek.